Okay, Velma, you explained to Scooby and me what news is, news and feature writing, editorializing, and safeguards. What's left?
Yeah, what's left?
Well, you two junior journalists, we're getting near the end of our cram course, but there's still some important steps left to putting out a paper.
Let's hear them.
Why don't we start back over to the school so I can show you some examples?
Okay.
While we're on our way, I can start explaining some of the final steps on a newspaper after the stories have been written.
There can't be much left.
Some of the most important jobs come into play now.
Like what?
Well, if the paper is very big, the copy reader goes through all the stories. On a smaller paper, the editor or page editors usually read them.
Why?
For one thing, any errors in the copy, both in content and style, are corrected.
That doesn't sound too tough.
Just a minute, I'm not through. That's just surface editing. The copy reader also makes sure the story is a good news story or feature. It should incorporate all the qualities we've already talked about.
You mean he can make changes in a writer's story?
That's right. The copy reader or editor tries to preserve the individuality of the story, but make sure it's accurate and interesting.
What are some of the changes he might make, Velma?
Well, he removes unnecessary words or phrases. He substitutes better words for inadequate ones. He removes, transposes, combines, or inserts paragraphs to improve the story. A copy reader or editor eliminates trite, needless, or libelous statements. Sometimes he puts in tie-in sentences to make the story flow. He looks at the lead for impact and makes sure none of the facts are buried in the body of the story.
Wow, a copy reader sure has to pay attention to detail.
That's right. If a story is really badly written, he rewrites it. And if time permits, the copy reader or editor may even send the story back to the reporter to be rewritten.
He sure has a big job.
Yeah, big.
If the copy reader and editor are the same person, he also decides how much of a story to use.
Oh, in case there's not room for all of it.
That's right. He may remove whole paragraphs or sections. That's called trimming. Or he may condense the whole story by just using the facts. That's called boiling down a story. A copy reader should be familiar with the standard copy reader's marks.
Is the copy reader responsible for anything else?
Well, as a matter of fact, he's the one who usually writes the headlines. On some papers, the reporter or page editor writes them.
Oh, yeah, headlines. They're kind of unique to newspapers, aren't they?
That's right. A headline summarizes the story, attracts reader attention, adds a flavor to the story, and gives the paper a certain look, all in just a few words.
I never thought of it like that.
Wow.
As much as possible, headlines should answer the 5 W's and H. They should not include slang or the words a, and, or the, unless they add something to the idea. Headlines should be precise and can even contain names, places, or numbers when they're important to the story. They should contain active verbs and avoid negative statements. Never use the same word twice in a headline.
How does a copy reader or editor go about writing a headline?
He reads the story and picks out the facts that belong in the headline. Then he uses his imagination and his vocabulary and creates the head. The most important element to work into the headline is the action feature of the story. The element that makes the story unique is the next important. Of course, above all, the headline should fit the story and not be awkwardly written.
Say, how about the look a headline has to it?
Right, Shaggy. There are many typefaces and sizes to choose from, and each carries a certain image with it. A headline must fit the space where it will be placed also. A newspaper selects a typeface it likes and uses it fairly consistently.
Boy, the more I learn about journalism and putting a paper together, I can see that it takes skill and imagination.
Yeah, sure does.
That's true, but it's a lot of fun. Well, here we are at the school. Let's go in and talk about printing and layout.
Is the paper printed here at school?
No, Shaggy. Most school papers are printed by commercial print shops on offset presses.
What's an offset press?
Well, in simple terms, a photograph is made of the newspaper pasted up as it will appear when finished. This photograph becomes a printing plate that goes on the press, and the press then prints a full page or pages of the newspaper.
What are other printing methods?
Yeah, what else?
Well, some schools and organizations print their papers on mimeograph machines. In this process, the stories are typed on a special stencil. This stencil is placed on a machine which makes the copies.
Okay, so when you're getting the paper ready for printing, what do you do?
Well, first of all, the process is called makeup.
No thanks, I don't wear any.
No, it's not that kind of makeup, silly. Makeup is deciding what the paper should look like.
Look like?
You want to get a paper that looks balanced and interesting. You also want it to set off important stories as well as look neat.
That sounds logical.
To get an idea of how the paper can look, you usually prepare a dummy.
Watch it.
No, Scooby. A dummy is a hand-drawn page which shows the relative position of the elements on the page.
That gives you a pretty good idea of the finished product.
Right. For our offset printing, the stories are typeset in long columns called galleys. The headlines are also typeset by the printer. The galleys and headlines are trimmed and then pasted on layout sheets. Artwork is also pasted up on the layout sheets.
What about pictures?
Some printers prefer the actual picture pasted on the layout sheets. Other printers want the picture's location indicated by a piece of black paper. Still other printers make a Velox, which is a special offset print to paste on the layout sheet.
Paste up doesn't look too difficult.
It's not tough after you get the hang of it. Neatness is important.
Yeah, I see.
Oh, I should have mentioned that all the copy would be carefully checked for mistakes before it's pasted down. That's called proofreading.
Well, Velma, have we wrapped up this story?
It looks like it, Shaggy. Once you have the basics, the best way to learn about newspapers is to read them and study them.
Let's get back and see if Fred and Daphne have uncovered any clues.
Oh, before we do that, there is one important aspect I forgot to mention.
Like what?
Everyone on a newspaper works under deadlines. Deadlines must be respected if the paper's to get out on time.
Deadlines are important, huh?
They sure are. They're what a newspaper lives by.
Well, what I live by is food. Let's get down to the malt shop. I'm starved.
Me too.
Okay, you two, let's go. Oh, just a second. That's the news phone. I better get it. Grover High Gazette. Oh, hi, Fred. What's up? Oh, really? That sure makes sense. Okay, thanks for calling.
What was that all about?
Yeah, what?
That was Fred. He and Daphne just wrapped up the fire mystery.
They did, Velma? Well, tell us what happened.
Well, they got to wondering why the fires were all in boys' lockers, all juniors, too.
Yeah?
After a little investigating, they discovered that all three students had one thing in common. They are all in 6th period woodshop.
So?
The class has been using a chemical to treat wood for water resistance. The three boys had taken rags out of the shop with some of the chemical on it. Once inside the closed lockers all night, the rags burst into flame because of spontaneous combustion.
Spontaneous combustion. Wow, that all makes sense. They need to be more safety conscious, don't they? Say, that would make a great editorial for the Gazette.
Now you're thinking like a newspaper person, Shaggy.
Huh? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am. I guess a journalist and a detective have a lot in common.
Yep, you pegged that one right on the nose.
Oh, nose.